Welcome back, everyone. Alan Sawyer will be our moderator for today's panel, looking at a national digital strategy with a creative eye. Alan's the guy with all the hair in the middle. Wait, I can't tell. Alan's the guy with slightly more hair in the middle, and he is the principal consultant at Solitudes Consulting. His company focuses on the changing face of entertainment, especially in television. We'll go to the panel moderated by Alan in a few moments, but before we do, I want to give delegates a brief PowerPoint. It's very short, and it's an overview about what a digital strategy might be, could be, how it might work, what some other countries are doing. This is some work that Alan prepared for this conference. I'd like to thank him for that as well. And some of the original research was supported by the National Film Board, one of our top sponsors at this event. And I'm going to go through this really quickly because I'd actually like to spend more time on the actual discussion. So here we go. Okay, so this is a long-winded way of talking about what a national digital strategy is. You can read it. I don't have to read it for you. But it's a formalized set of objectives which get us moving forward in the digital domain so that we can be prosperous in the next century. In other words, a national plan for the digital age. And I like to use the word nation. The nation of Canada, our national plan for the digital age. It's not a word that's used very often anymore, although the Olympics have brought some of it back. Some national digital strategies around the world. Great Britain, Australia, New Zealand, France. Canada does not have a national digital strategy yet, although there's been a lot of talk about it, and there's some foreshadowing that we're going to be working on it more as a country, and government's going to get involved, but it isn't happening yet. There are a lot of people who are trying to build a consensus around it. Some of these countries already are on their second version, like New Zealand, so they're really moving on it. What are some of the priorities and themes that other countries have developed? Well, these are some of them. You can see them for yourself. I won't go over all of them, but really broadband access is really important. Having confidence in the security of your broadband service, internet security in terms of privacy and so on, despite what we were told earlier about Peter Deckham, we don't really have any privacy, but people want to feel confident that they're not going to have their credit card data stolen, things like that. Content is very important. And healthcare is actually becoming a big part in many countries, and the next generation healthcare, which is very much going to be supported online. We've run into a few glitches with that here, but I'm sure we'll get over them. Digital Britain. I think this is worth talking about. We are at a tipping point in relation to the online world, moving from conferring advantage on those who are in it to conferring active disadvantage on those who are without. And Digital Britain was very concerned about people who don't really have access to the digital online world for a variety of reasons. It's not just because they don't necessarily, often it's related to poverty or economic advantage. Today's digital divide must give way to complete digital inclusion. If you're not involved in the digital world, you're hardly going to be a part of making it a successful part of your nation's future. So making broadband universally available, lowering the costs, helping people overcome their fear, and helping people understand the benefits of being online. Obviously, a lot of this is happening, particularly with the younger generation and now even into the old folks like us, like me, I should speak for myself. We're starting to feel a lot more confident about using the online services, but there's a lot more work we could do to accelerate the process to make us more successful. This is from Australia's digital economy. It really talks about how the focus up until now, in many places, has been on the risks of online transactions instead of the benefits of online transactions. I think that's a very important thing to think about, how we move from one state of mind about using this technology to a new state of mind, which really is the opposite of how we've been thinking. It's not just about taking the skills many of us have from film and television and somehow bolting on, as people have talked about, or adding a few things. It's a much bigger issue, and the educational system is a big part of it. At CFTPA, we really believe that we need to align our entire educational system behind the digital strategy so we can be successful in terms of our competency. I have the great privilege of traveling around the world, meeting with producers from other countries. Recently, I've been spending a lot of time in Latin America, and Brazil, and Colombia, and I've been really, my preconceived notions about those countries have been completely destroyed. I was knocked over in Colombia. I went to Bogota thinking, okay, it's a bunch of narco traffickers, and they got to, watch my wallet. You know, and that's an image that they're trying to overcome. That's one of the reasons they invite me, people like me, to come down and try to overcome that. And what I found, highly literate, incredibly well-educated young people, an educational system that's totally focused and totally aligned on the digital economy. They don't see any future for their country outside of the realm of the global digital economy. They've set up entire educational institutions that are focused on CGI, on 3D, on advanced post-production. They've acquired the best technology in the world. They're bringing it into their educational institutions. They're making a conscious decision as a nation to focus on the digital economy because they don't have a lot of other advantages. And we have one huge advantage. They're literate, they speak English well, young people particularly, and they have a low wage rate. So they see themselves as being very, very competitive in that world. What are we doing? Copyright, that's a huge issue, and I'm sure in this room there are hundreds of different opinions about that and what we need to do, and I don't think anybody has the path to success. But the laws we have now were created in an age before all this digital talk was even part of everyday consciousness or part of people's behavior, and we've been working on getting some new copyright legislation here for a long time, something we'll probably talk about today. Canadians love video online if they have access. Those who have access to online are among the largest consumers of video in the world. You can see they're watching a lot of videos online. Some of those now are increasingly coming from some of our broadcast sites. The total amount of time spent on the internet has actually dropped slightly. I'm not sure why that is, but the time they're watching video is actually increasing. We've seen some growth, as I mentioned. Some of our Canadian sites are really starting to pick up now. It's been my perception that the Canadian broadcasters in particular have been a little slow to catch on. They've been a little bit behind, particularly the United States. I think that's something we tend to do as a country. We watch and see what other people are doing, the mistakes they make, the successes they have, and then we follow in their footsteps. We're not necessarily as innovative as we could be. That's also part of the whole digital strategy discussion. But we're seeing growth. And where we see growth, we want to capitalize on it and do more of it. But we need to get our act together to do that effectively. You can see now these are the different places where people get their online video in Canada. And CTV sites are now starting to get a good little slice of the pie. But most of those sites are American sites. And these are the American brands that dominate the video landscape for Canadians. And also, if you look at TV, this is something the CFTPA harps on a lot. I make a lot of speeches about it because it's something that concerns us. We see a lot of investment on foreign content as opposed to Canadian content, very significant growth in spending on foreign content. And that's just part of the same problem, the foreign domination of these cultural products that people are consuming. So we have an attention trade deficit. The ratio of foreign to domestic content is not what many of us think it could be or should be in order for us to build our place in the global economy and take advantage of the economic opportunities. How our digital future unfold? It can unfold. I've actually been in discussions recently with some very senior people in the industry who basically say, we don't need a digital strategy. The invisible hand of the marketplace will take care of it and everything will be just fine. So that's actually something we should probably talk about. It's not a completely flaky idea that we shouldn't actually have a digital media strategy. Some people are advocating that we don't need one. There's no reason for it. It's all going to happen anyway because of consumer behavior, private corporations, and so on. We'll hear what our panelists have to say about that. If we want to be successful as content creators, I think one of the threads today is we've got to provide Canadians with domestic content that also has international potential, because the consumption of content now is being done in an international marketplace. It's not, we've had a very protected market. We've been very parochial in our approach. We've been really successful, I think, at producing Canadian content for our own market. And we've had some significant success internationally. Canada has an interesting profile internationally. We're seen as internationalists. We're seen as fair traders. We're seen as open-minded people. And we're seen as good at co-production. We have a better reputation outside the country than many of us really believe or understand. So how can we leverage that?